The strange order. The tavern was alive with noise, the smell of roasted meat and burning oils filling the air. Aliens of many kinds crowding around heavy wooden tables, laughing, shouting, and drinking strange glowing liquids. It was a night of celebration for them, a night to forget the wars raging outside their worlds. At one corner, the door creaked open. A tall man stepped inside. His skin was pale compared to the greenish and bluish tones of the others, his eyes sharp, his hair messy from travel. He wore an old soldier's jacket, its fabric torn in places, but the symbol of Earth still visible on the shoulder. The noise in the tavern grew quiet for just a moment. Every head turned to look at him. Some whispered, some frowned. Humans were rare here, and most aliens thought them fragile, weak, or at best stubborn. But this one walked with a calm step, as if he was not afraid of anyone. He chose a lonely table near the window, sitting down. Without a word, the wooden chair creaked under his weight. His eyes scanned the room, not with fear, but with a strange patience, as if he was used to being surrounded by strangers who did not trust him. An alien waitress walked toward him. Her skin was light blue with silver lines across her cheeks. Her eyes large and glowing faintly like moons. She held a small device in her hand to take orders. Her voice trembled slightly as she asked, "What will you have, human?" The man looked at the menu carved into the wall. Strange drinks with names impossible to pronounce, each one stronger than the last. His lips curved into a faint smile. "Bring me the strongest you have," he said simply. The waitress froze. Her glowing eyes widened. "The strongest? Are you sure?" She almost laughed nervously. "Even war beasts can barely finish it." The man leaned back in his chair, his voice steady. "I said the strongest." Around them, a few aliens chuckled. One of them whispered loudly, "The human is foolish. He doesn't know what he's asking for." Another added, "He'll faint after one sip, just wait and see." Laughter rippled across the tavern, but the man ignored it completely. The waitress walked away, shaking her head. She moved behind the counter and picked up a thick glass container glowing with a deep red liquid. It was not just drink, it was fire trapped in liquid form, known to burn the throats of even seasoned warriors. She filled a mug and carefully placed it on a tray. Her hands trembled as she set it down in front of the human. "Here," she whispered, "one drink of this, and you may not stand again." The man lifted the mug without hesitation. The heavy liquid swirled inside, glowing faintly as if alive. He took a long sip. The entire tavern grew silent, waiting for him to cough, to scream, or to collapse like so many before. But he didn't. He set the mug down gently, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and exhaled slowly, his expression calm, his voice steady. "Not bad," he said. The silence stretched. The waitress's lips parted in shock. The aliens at nearby tables leaned forward, unable to believe what they saw. One of them muttered, "Impossible." He didn't even flinch. The man lifted the mug again, this time finishing half of it in one go, his hand steady, his eyes calm. The glow of the drink did nothing to shake him. He placed the empty mug down and looked at the waitress. "Another," he said simply. The tray slipped slightly from her hands. Her silver eyes blinked rapidly. "Wait. What? Another? Already?" Her voice rose, filled with disbelief. The aliens gasped, some even standing from their chairs to watch. The waitress's heart raced. She could not understand. No alien had ever asked for another so quickly. Even the strongest warriors needed hours to recover, but this human. He asked as if it was simple water. For a moment the tavern was frozen, every eye staring at the lone man at the table. His calm expression was scarier than any roar. He was not proving his strength loudly. He was showing it quietly. The waitress stumbled backward, clutching the tray against her chest, her mind spinning. Was he a monster, or something even stranger? The man leaned back in his chair, waiting patiently for his order as if nothing had happened. The silence of the tavern was broken by whispers, then by nervous laughter, and finally by fear. Some said softly, "Humans. Are they even mortal?" Others muttered, "If he can drink that, what else can he do?" The waitress felt her legs weaken. Her hands shook. The world spun around her, and before she could stop herself, her knees buckled, and she fainted right there in front of the crowd. The mug still glowed on the table, the human's calm hand resting beside it. And in that moment, everyone in the tavern realized this night was going to be remembered forever. The impossible stamina. The tavern was no longer filled with laughter. The sound of music had died, replaced only by heavy breaths and whispers. All eyes were fixed on the fainted waitress and the calm human sitting at his lonely table. The waitress's body lay on the floor for only a few seconds before another server rushed to lift her up. They carried her aside, splashing cold water across her face until her glowing eyes slowly opened. She blinked, gasping, and the first thing she saw was the human still sitting there, waiting. Her voice trembled. "Wait. You want more? Already?" Her words echoed louder than she intended, and the crowd grew restless. The human did not answer right away. He simply tapped his finger on the empty mug, slow and steady. His silence was heavier than any words. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet, but firm. "Yes, bring me another." The tavern erupted in noise. Some shouted in disbelief, some laughed nervously, but many leaned forward, eager to see if this human was truly insane. One alien, a tall-scaled warrior with black horns, growled from the other side of the room. "If he drinks another, he will die, and I will laugh over his body." Another alien hissed back, "You fool, didn't you see?" The first didn't even touch him. "He's not normal." The waitress rose unsteadily to her feet, clutching the tray to her chest. Her mind spun with fear, but something inside her, curiosity, maybe even admiration, pushed her to obey. She returned to the counter, hands trembling as she poured another mug of the glowing red liquid. When she set it down in front of the human, her voice broke. "Please, don't. No one can handle this twice. You don't have to prove anything." The man lifted the mug, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. For a moment, her heart stopped. His eyes were calm. Not wild, not proud, just calm. As if this was nothing, unusual for him. He raised the mug, and before anyone could stop him, he drank. The thick liquid slid down his throat, burning bright as fire. The crowd gasped, waiting for him to choke, waiting for his body to collapse, but the human only placed the mug down gently and exhaled. "Still not enough," he said softly. The tavern exploded. Shouts, cries, and even screams filled the room. Some aliens clutched, their heads unable to believe what they saw. Others backed away, muttering about curses and forbidden power. The waitress's knees shook again. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "It's not. No one can do this." But the human leaned back, his expression steady, as if he had only taken water. His hand tapped the mug again. "Another," he said. Her heart skipped a beat. She could not move. Her hands refused to obey. Behind her, the crowd roared, "Do it, bring him another." "No, don't, he'll destroy himself. He's already broken every rule of nature." The tavern was chaos, and yet the human sat in the center like a stone in the middle of a storm, silent, unmoved. The scaled warrior with black horns slammed his fist on the table. "Enough! If this weak creature can do it again, I will challenge him myself." His voice shook the walls. His companions cheered, but there was fear hidden behind their eyes. The waitress's breath quickened. She finally understood. This human wasn't just drinking. He was changing the way everyone saw his kind. His simple act of survival had turned into legend before her very eyes. She poured the third mug with trembling fingers, her eyes never leaving his face. When she brought it to him, she whispered, "Why are you doing this? What are you trying to prove?" The man looked at her, his voice low. "Nothing, I'm only thirsty." Those words struck her harder than any roar. He wasn't fighting for pride, he wasn't fighting for attention, he was just being himself. And that made him more terrifying than any warrior. The crowd pressed closer. Aliens stood on tables. Some even climbed the walls just to see better. The tavern was no longer a place of rest. It had become an arena. The human raised the third mug. His movements slow, controlled, deliberate. The glowing drink shone against his skin, lighting his face with a red flame, and with one smooth motion he drank again. The waitress gasped, clutching her mouth. Her legs nearly gave out once more, and then silence. The man set the mug down, exhaled calmly, and looked at her. "Better," he said, his voice like iron, steady and unshaken. The silence turned into terror, and terror turned into awe. The entire tavern realized they were no longer looking at a fragile outsider. They were staring at a being whose willpower broke every limit they knew. The waitress whispered under her breath, unable to stop the words, "You're not human. You're something greater." And as she spoke, her silver eyes filled with both fear and admiration. The crowd began to chant, some in disbelief, some in worship, but all in recognition. This night would be remembered forever. The man leaned, back in his chair, his calm presence louder than any scream, and the waitress, clutching her chest, knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The rumor begins. The tavern was no longer just a tavern. It had become a storm of whispers, fear and wonder mixed in the air like smoke. The faint light from the lamps flickered on the faces of aliens who could not look away from the human sitting calmly at his table. He had drunk what no one could drink. He had asked for more when others begged for mercy. Now the entire hall felt smaller, as if the walls were leaning in, as if the weight of this night was too heavy for such a place. The waitress stood frozen near him. Her silver eyes still wide, her heart still pounding. She wanted to speak, but no words came. The human's calmness was louder than her screams. He just sat there, his hand resting near the empty mugs, as if waiting for the world to catch up to him. One alien broke the silence. His voice was rough, his tusks clacking together nervously. "This is not normal. Humans are not supposed to be like this," another hissed in reply. "Maybe they are stronger than we thought. Maybe they were hiding their power." Soon more voices joined in. Whispers spread faster than fire. "He's not drinking, he's feeding on the flames. No, no. He's a machine wearing human skin. Or maybe Earth breeds monsters." The waitress shook her head. Her trembling hand covered her mouth. She knew these words would not stay inside the tavern. By tomorrow, the whole colony would know. By next week, the story would spread across the stars. At the far side of the tavern, a group of merchants exchanged glances. One of them leaned closer to the other and muttered, "If a single human can do this, imagine an army of them. What if Earth has thousands?" The other merchant swallowed hard, his scales shivering. "Then we are doomed, absolutely doomed." The rumor began even before the humans stood up. Some aliens ran outside, their feet pounding on the cold stone streets, eager to carry the story to anyone who would listen. "A human defied the impossible," they shouted into the night. "A human drinks fire as if it is water." The waitress tried to stop them. "No, wait," she cried, her voice breaking. But no one listened. Once a story leaves lips, it grows wings, and once it has wings, nothing can stop it. Inside the tavern, the scaled warrior with black horns still sat glaring, his pride wounded, his claws dug. Into the table, carving deep scars into the wood, he growled, "This is a trick, it must be. Humans are weak, I will prove it." He rose to his feet, his massive frame towering over the crowd. His shadow covered the human's table. The room went silent again, every whisper cut short. The waitress gasped, "Please don't." But it was too late. The warrior slammed a heavy jug onto the table. "If you are truly strong, human, then face me. A duel of drinking, here and now." His voice boomed through the tavern. The crowd cheered wildly, desperate for more, desperate for proof. The human lifted his eyes slowly, meeting the warrior's glare without fear. For a moment, the silence was so deep, the only sound was the waitress's shaking breath. Then the man spoke. "If that is what you want, I will accept." The tavern exploded again. Aliens stamped their feet. Some roared in excitement, others in fear. The waitress pressed her hands against her chest, her body trembling as if her very soul was caught between dread and awe. The duel began. Mug After mug was filled, glowing red, steaming, the liquid alive with heat and danger. The warrior grabbed his mug, lifted it high, and drank with a snarl. The crowd roared as he slammed it down, fire still glowing on his lips. The human lifted his mug quietly. No roar, no performance. He drank slowly, smoothly, then set it down without sound. That silence was louder than the warrior's thunder, round after round. The warrior's body shook, his scales quivering, his horns lowering as sweat dripped. Down his face, his roars turned to grunts, then to groans. Finally, after the 7th round, his legs gave way, and his massive body collapsed, shaking the floor. The crowd screamed. Some cheered in wild joy, others in terrified disbelief. The waitress stumbled backward, her hands over her lips, her silver eyes wide with tears. The human sat still, calm, unshaken. His voice broke the storm once again. "Enough," he said. "This is pointless." He rose from his chair, standing tall in the flickering light. Whispers turned into shouts, shouts turned into stories, and those stories left the tavern carried by every mouth, every trembling hand. He defeated the horned warrior. He drinks what cannot be drunk. He is no man. He is a force. The waitress clutched her chest, her heart racing. She knew the truth now. This was not just about drinks. This was about something deeper. This was about fear changing into legend. This was about one human rewriting what aliens believed was possible. And as the human walked slowly toward the door, every eye followed him, every voice whispered his name. The rumor had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would be the same again. The challenge. The story of the human spread through the streets like wildfire. By the time the tavern's doors swung open again, the crowd outside had doubled. Curious eyes, fearful whispers, and bold shouts filled the night air. Everyone wanted to see the human who had defeated both fire and the horned warrior. Inside, the tavern was no longer a place of food and drink. It had become an arena. Tables had been pushed aside, mugs abandoned. All that remained was the human sitting calmly, and the silence of those who watched him. The waitress stood near him, her silver eyes never leaving his face. She still couldn't understand him. Was he foolish, reckless, or something greater than anything she had ever known? The heavy door creaked and a group of armored alien soldiers entered. Their boots struck the floor like drums. Their armor gleamed with strange symbols of rank and pride. Their leader was tall and broad, his skin a dark bronze with sharp markings. Across his arms, his eyes glowed with authority. The crowd parted in fear and respect as the soldiers marched forward. The leader stopped in front of the human's table and let his heavy voice fill the room. "So you are the one causing this madness. You think your tricks make you powerful?" The human looked up at him, his eyes calm as always. "No tricks," he replied softly. "Only truth." The soldier snarled, slamming his hand against the table so hard that the wood cracked. "Then prove it, human. I challenge you. Not with words, not with whispers, but with a trial. If you are strong, show it in front of all. If you are weak, you will crawl from here broken." The tavern gasped. The waitress took a step forward, her voice desperate. "No, please. He has nothing to prove. He already..." But the soldier cut her off. "Silence, girl. This is bigger than you." His eyes burned with arrogance. "This is about honor." The human stood slowly, pushing back his chair. His movement was calm, controlled, not a hint of fear in his step. He faced the soldier, his voice steady. "If you want a challenge, I will not refuse." The soldiers brought out a great jug, larger than any before, glowing so brightly it seemed alive with fire. This was not an ordinary drink. It was brewed for battles, used only in sacred tests of endurance. Even the strongest alien captains rarely survived it. The jug was placed on the center table, and the leader grinned. "One mug after another until one of us falls." The crowd roared with excitement. Some shouted the soldier's name, others whispered prayers for the human. The waitress pressed, her hands together, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. The challenge began. The soldier lifted his mug first, drinking the glowing fire as if to show dominance. He slammed it down, roaring in triumph. The crowd cheered. The human lifted his mug quietly, drinking it without sound, without expression. He set it down gently, his silence once again louder than the soldier's roar. Round after round continued. The jug slowly emptied. Each time the soldier grew louder, his voice echoing with forced strength. His muscles shook, his eyes burned. His pride demanded victory, but his body was failing him. The human remained steady. Each sip was calm, each breath even. His hand did not tremble. His eyes did not shift. He was not fighting the drink, he was mastering it. By the fifth round, the soldier's legs wobbled, his chest heaved. He gripped the edge of the table to steady himself. His pride kept him upright, but his strength was slipping. The human drank his fifth without pause, his voice quiet as he said, "Another." The sixth round broke the soldier. He lifted his mug, tried to drink, but his throat refused. His hand shook so badly the liquid spilled across the table. The crowd gasped as his massive body swayed, and then, like a mountain collapsing, he fell to the ground with a thunderous crash. The tavern was silent for a long breath. The sound of the soldier's fall echoed through the walls, and then chaos erupted. Some cheered wildly, raising their arms in awe. "The human is a champion." Others cried in fear, "No one should have such power. He is dangerous." Some ran outside, eager to spread the news, shouting, "The human defeated the soldiers. The human is unstoppable." The HFY waitress rushed to the human's side, her hands trembling as she touched his arm. "Why do you keep doing this? Why do you accept every challenge?" The man looked at her, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. "Because they must understand, we do not break so easily." Her silver eyes filled with tears, half with fear, half with something else. Something she could not name. The soldiers who remained stood frozen, their pride shattered. Their leader lay unconscious at their feet, defeated by a man they thought weaker than dust. The human turned away from them, walking back to his seat. His steps calm, his presence unshaken. But in the eyes of everyone watching, he was no longer just a man. He was a storm walking in flesh, and the galaxy had just begun to whisper his name, the collapse of the warriors. The tavern's floor still shook from the fall of the bronze-skinned soldier. His massive body lay motionless, his pride shattered. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the gasps of the crowd. The human stood quietly near the table, his shadow stretching across the room. He did not smile. He did not raise his arms in victory. He simply breathed steadily, his calmness more frightening than any roar. The waitress clutched the side of a chair, her silver eyes wide. She whispered under her breath, "He doesn't fight like them. He doesn't need to. His silence is stronger than their noise." The soldiers who had come with their leader exchanged uneasy glances. Their armor rattled as they shifted nervously. For them, honor demanded revenge. Pride demanded that they rise. And so one of them, a tall, sharp-faced alien with blazing red markings across his chest, stepped forward. His voice shook with anger. "You defeated one of us, human, but you will not defeat us all. We will come at you together, and then you will know your place." The crowd gasped. A murmur rose. "Together? That breaks the code." But another hissed. "The code means nothing now. This human is beyond the code." The waitress tried to step forward, but her feet refused. Her heart pounded painfully. She wanted to stop them, but her voice was too small against the storm of pride. The warriors surrounded the table, 4 of them, their eyes glowing, their mugs filled with the same burning liquid. They raised them high, their voices thundering in unison. For honor, and then they drank. The liquid fire burned their throats, their muscles flexed and their roars shook the walls. They slammed their mugs down, glaring at the human with eyes full of fury. The man reached for his mug slowly, without hurry. He lifted it, drank deeply, and set it down gently. His calm silence cut through their fury like a blade. The second round began, and the third. The warriors grew louder, their movements harsher, their pride forcing them to continue. But their eyes betrayed the truth. Each swallow was pain, each breath was fire tearing them apart. The human drank quietly each time, steady, calm, unbroken. His hand never shook, his body never swayed. He seemed untouchable, as if the fire itself bowed to him. By the fourth round, sweat poured down the warriors' faces. Their voices faltered. One of them dropped his mug, coughing violently, red liquid spilling across the floor. He stumbled backward and fell, his body twitching as he collapsed unconscious. The crowd erupted. Some screamed in disbelief, others cheered wildly, chanting the word "human, human." The sound echoed through the tavern like a storm. The waitress covered her mouth, her silver eyes filling with tears, her voice a trembling whisper. One by one, "They are falling." The fifth round came. The three remaining warriors raised. Their mugs with shaking hands they roared, but their voices cracked. Their bodies wavered as they drank. Their pride was now their only weapon. The human drank his fifth quietly, his eyes steady, his body still. He set his mug down gently. The second warrior collapsed, his legs buckling beneath him. His head struck the floor with a heavy thud. The third dropped his mug, clutching his stomach before falling forward onto the table unconscious. The tavern gasped. The chants grew louder. Human, human, human. Only one warrior remained. His eyes bloodshot, his body trembling, his pride screamed louder than his strength. He lifted the mug with both hands, struggling to keep it steady. He drank, but the liquid spilled down his chin. His roar was broken. His chest heaved. The human lifted his mug once more, drank smoothly, and set it down. His calm presence was unbearable to watch. The last warrior groaned. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the ground with a heavy crash. The floor shook again, and silence followed. All four warriors lay unconscious around him. Their strength, their pride, their honor, all shattered. The human stood in the center of the fallen, his shadow long, his breath calm, his silence louder than the cries of the crowd. The waitress stepped closer, her voice breaking. You're not just strong. You're something else, something none of us understand." The man looked at her, his expression steady. "I am only human," he said simply, but the crowd no longer believed that. To them, he was something more, a legend standing before their eyes. The tavern shook not from battle, but from the chants of the aliens. Their voices echoed the truth of what they had witnessed. He drinks fire, he breaks warriors, he does not fall. The waitress's hands trembled, her heart raced with fear and awe, and deep inside, she knew something terrifying. This was only the beginning. Outside, the rumor had already grown wings, spreading from street to street, ship to ship, world to world. And as the night deepened, one thing became certain. Every warrior who stood against him would collapse, and every whisper of his name would rise. The galaxy had seen strength before, but never like this, never so quiet, never so human. The human nodded slowly, his calm eyes fixed on the crowd that still stared at him in disbelief. He knew the storm was only growing, and now he was no longer alone. The secret revealed. The tavern was quiet again, but the silence was not empty. It was heavy, filled with questions, fears, and wonder. The human sat calmly at the table, the waitress close by his side. The warriors lay defeated, the soldiers gone, and yet the crowd still lingered. They could not leave, not after what they had seen. The waitress leaned closer, her voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. "You must tell me. You are not like the others. No alien, no warrior, no being I have ever seen can do what you did tonight. What are you really?" The human's eyes turned to her, calm as ever, but there was something else behind them now. A weight, a truth he had carried quietly until this moment. He exhaled slowly, then spoke. "I am exactly what you see. I am human." The waitress shook her head, her silver eyes wide. "No, that's not enough. Humans are fragile. Humans bleed, humans break, but you did not break. You drank fire as if it were water. You stood when warriors fell. You faced soldiers without fear. That is not fragile." The crowd leaned in. Every ear was desperate to catch his words. Every breath held as they waited for his answer. The man's voice was quiet, steady, but it carried across the entire tavern. "You call us fragile because you only see the surface. You see flesh, bone, weakness. But inside us is something you do not understand. Something no drink, no battle, no weapon can destroy, the waitress whispered. What is it? His eyes met hers, and for the first time his calm voice carried fire. Will. The will to endure. The will to rise when others fall. The will to face pain and keep walking. That is what makes us human. That is why I can do this. The crowd shivered. His words echoed like thunder, though he spoke softly. They realized now it was not just strength of body that frightened them. It was strength of spirit, the kind of power that could not be measured. The waitress's lips trembled. Her eyes softened. She had seen warriors fight for pride, for honor, for fear of losing. But this man fought simply because he refused to stop. Because deep inside he carried a fire stronger than any drink. She whispered again, almost to herself. That's why you never broke. The man nodded slightly, his calm returning. That's why none of us break. Not truly. Even if we fall, we rise again. The silence in the tavern was broken by murmurs. Aliens whispered to one another, their voices filled with both awe and fear. If all humans are like him, no army could stand against them. They are not fragile, they are endless. The waitress looked around, her heart pounding. She realized the galaxy would never be the same after this night. The story of this man would spread like fire, and with it, the truth of humanity would grow larger than ever before. The human rose slowly. His shadow stretched across the floor. His presence filled the room, though he made no sound. He placed a hand on the waitress's shoulder gently, his voice softer now. You stood for me when no one else did. That is what makes you strong too. Her silver eyes filled with tears. She smiled faintly, whispering, Then maybe I learned what will really means tonight. The crowd parted as the man walked toward the door. Each step was steady, each breath calm. Every alien in the room lowered their gaze, some out of fear, others out of respect. None dared to block his path. When he reached the door, he paused. His eyes scanned the crowd one last time. His voice rang out clear and steady. Remember this. Strength is not in how much you can take. It is in how much you refuse to surrender. Then he stepped into the night. The waitress followed close behind, leaving the tavern buzzing with whispers that would travel far beyond this single world. By dawn, the story had already begun to spread, carried by merchants, by travelers, by frightened warriors who had seen it with their own eyes. A human who drank fire, who shattered warriors, who revealed the secret of their kind. The galaxy would call him many names: monster, savior, legend. But the truth was simpler. He was human. And now everyone finally understood what that meant.